Greetings, my friends. I want to tell you all about my new channel, Pop Culture KO, a channel where I'm going to experiment and try out some new things that I can't do on my main channel here because the algorithm discourages innovation and trying out new formats. Pop Culture KO will be more eclectic, with movie and TV reviews, game reviews, reviews of classic movies, YouTube shorts about rumors, and videos starring Harvey Cthulhu, the Skull of Calderon, and Omnivac himself. Go to youtube.com/@popcultureko or youtube.com/theharveyzone and subscribe today. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do. We need your help. Thanks for watching, and now on with the video. Greetings, my friends, and welcome to another discussion with my good friend and ally, Kamran Pasha. We have been hearing some rumblings about things going on at Lucasfilm. We've heard things about Filoni remaking or making or rebranding, however you want to put it, Heir to the Empire, the classic Timothy Zahn trilogy that everyone believes should have been the sequel trilogy. Kamran, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Overlord. It's always a delight to be here. You've got an incredible channel, and you've got some of the best people watching the channel in the fandom. Having some really lively conversations, and we're gonna have a little bit of a lively conversation today that will hopefully, engage some of your viewers.
Absolutely, because I am really one of my viewers. I mean, I'm just a viewer that happens to have a microphone, but I'm a fan. And I care about pop culture passionately, Star Wars and Star Trek. So when I hear that there's a rumor out there that Filoni is remaking, I'm saying remaking because, my feeling or fear is that it's not really going to be Heir to the Empire, but that's one of the discussions we'll have. When I hear this, I am filled not with enthusiasm, but a degree of trepidation. Now, you have a great source inside Lucasfilm, Sparrow. I have never spoken to Sparrow. I don't know anything about Sparrow other than what you've said. Yes. But this is a great source, and you have received a great update from Sparrow. I would love to hear what Sparrow had to say about Heir to the Empire.
Okay. So, my relationship with Sparrow is they reach out to me when they're ready. I can't compel that. And so it's a bat phone rings, and I get the call. Okay, it's Sparrow. Okay, here we go. So the bat phone rang yesterday, and it came in specific to give certain information because already we started having certain leaks. I think about 48 hours ago, we started having certain leaks that were coming into social media that the title for the Dave Filoni film that has been announced, he's doing a Star Wars film, we know that, is Heir to the Empire, which, as you mentioned, is the title of this incredible novel that Timothy Zahn wrote in the early 90s that launched the EU, that created Grand Admiral Thrawn, that gave me, as a Star Wars fan, hope for the future of Star Wars back then. This was even before the prequels existed, right? And so I was like, all we had was the last we heard of this was Return of the Jedi, and I was like, is this franchise gone forever? And then this created a new world, and essentially created the EU, which sadly was then decanonized by this silly regime that took over after George Lucas, and so using the title Heir to the Empire, that caused a lot of buzz because what does that mean? Does it mean they're going back to that original book, which has Luke Skywalker, Han and Leia are married. I don't remember if they had their kids by then.
Not yet, but she was pregnant.
She was pregnant. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. And so, it was a part of a trilogy. Some very interesting, new things that could happen in the next generation after the fall of the Empire, right? And so that, and I was like, well, is that true? And they had looked into this, and they came back to me. Sparrow came back to me saying that yes, there is actually already at least a draft. I don't know if it's a draft of a full script or a draft of a treatment. There's a draft of a story, right? And the extent, they didn't reveal to me the extent of whether that an entire screenplay has been written or not. But there is a draft of the story already inside the Lucasfilm archives. There's already something there. And they said it is entitled Heir to the Empire by Dave Filoni. And it's called, in the draft, it's called the working title. That's how it's referred to, right? And so we already have that the title may change. But as of now, the current draft of the papers that exist inside of Lucasfilm are Heir to the Empire, working title. And based on their perusal of the story, that it appears very much to be an adaptation of that Timothy Zahn novel, with this caveat, which is where I think we'll have a discussion as to what that means, because they didn't give it all the details. They have to be careful. The amount of detail they give me can also unmask them, and the danger of being unmasked yourself as a masked supervillain, right? And so they didn't want to give me all the details as to what they know about the project, but they did say this is very much based on the original novel. However, the mythology is being adjusted to accommodate what has already been established by Dave Filoni and Favreau in their universe, which includes the Mandalorian, and will, I guess, include Ahsoka and other things, right? And so that is what we know, that it's going to be a version of the Timothy Zahn novel, which I assume has, Grand Admiral Thrawn, trying to retake and rebuild the Empire and actually succeeding, as in beating back the New Republic, right, which was the course of those 3 novels. And so with adjustments that make sure that it doesn't contradict anything that's been established by Mando or Ahsoka. So that's what they said. And let's talk about what that means.
Well, it sounds bad to me, Cameron. I got to say that it fills me with fear, trepidation, and horror to think that Dave Filoni is in charge of this under Kathleen Kennedy. And there is a lot of talk, and my spies have said as much, that Filoni is basically broken away from Jon Favreau and allied himself with Kathleen Kennedy, and gotten this movie. There's a video of him out there, basically saying that Kennedy is his mentor, and there was earlier video that I did a video about years ago, where Filoni was at some kind of conference, like basically, espousing, girl power in Star Wars, and saying that Luke just held the door for Leia as she, got out of her prison cell. It's all this, Kathleen Kennedy feminist claptrap. I'm truly frightened. I mean, unless this is going to be an animated film. And I don't think, we haven't.
No, he wants to go to live action. That's always been his ambition. He's always wanted to become a live action filmmaker, and that's this guy's long-term career trajectory.
Well, this could be great news, maybe, if they actually were somehow going to do, deep fake Luke, Han, and Leia. But if Luke, Han, and Leia are not in this story, and instead it's going to be Ezra and Ahsoka, just Praetorian guards, and we're going to have to shoehorn Snoke in there somewhere. This is going to be a disaster of epic proportions if that's the case. Now, we don't know any details, or I don't know any details.
Well, not yet. And I'm going to actually, hopefully the next time the bat phone rings, I'm going to try to get more details from Sparrow, because these are real concerns that you're raising, that people on my Patreon are raising, people in the community are out, especially when this video gets out, because my Patreon is relatively small. This video is going to reach hundreds of thousands of people. As this information gets out, there will be more people raising the concerns that you're raising. So may I address them? May I
Please do.
May I give a counter? And again, this is me speculating until Sparrow tells me that you're right. This is me speculating based on my effort to make sense of the chessboard of everything. So let's answer the first issue that you've wisely raised, which is Dave Filoni essentially betrayed Jon Favreau, and is he, just a guy who's on Kathleen Kennedy's coattails? So the video that you mentioned about a few years ago, I saw that video where he was out there at a feminist conference, making comments, and it gets a public conference. He's on stage and making comments about, how important Leia is and all that, and perhaps overshadowing Luke. And then more recent videos come out as like a mentor. Well, on a very simple level, what else is he going to say? He's an employee. Is he going to come out and say, I don't like Kathleen Kennedy? Let's just go with the possibility that maybe that he doesn't really like her that much, or he's just using her as a means to an end. Let's just go with that for a second. If that were true, could he say it? No, he'd be fired instantly. If she says, go to speak at this, the boss, the CEO of the company says, go to speak at this feminist conference, what's he going to say? He's going to say what that audience wants to hear. There is nothing else he can say, because he's been assigned to do this job. If I, as someone, my politics, my storytelling beliefs are very well known, but if I was in this position, I'd have to go along with my boss or quit, which that guy ain't gonna quit. He's got a long-term agenda to get to where he's been trying to get to, which is a big live action director. I met this guy 10 years ago when Clone Wars was still was being developed, because I interviewed for the job. and I met him, and he's always had this long-term ambition. And unlike Jon Favreau, is already a very powerful established filmmaker. This guy is he animated guy slowly climbing up the mountain. That's what he's been trying to do, and he's getting there, right? So number one, that's all he's going to say. I mean, I think anyone who is upset that he's saying, well, Kathleen Kennedy's my mentor. I've worked on shows where I've disliked my bosses tremendously, and have, because the show got a lot of prominence, I would sometimes be interviewed or and I would be talking exactly those words. These are wonderful people. I'm so honored that they gave me opportunity. They're mentors of mine. What else are you going to say? That's just professional. You have to. Otherwise, unless you just want to sabotage your career and make your point, right? And then be out forever. That's fine. I'm not
sure.
So that's point one, which is I don't think he said anything that person in position would not have said. I mean, that's what he would say. So number two.
Well, before you go on to two, let me just insert something here. My Hollywood Spies had sent me a number of posts basically saying that a lot of people had come to them and said that indeed Filoni had defected to Kennedy. That's why one of the reasons why Mandalorian season 3 was so abysmal. The scary thing is, Kamran, I got zero pushback from that. No, I went to talk to my spies and I said, "What? So guys, I don't want this to be true. Have you gotten anyone, any sources, any of our sources, coming and pushing back and saying no, that's disinformation. Favreau and Filoni are fine. Everything's great." I didn't get one bit of pushback, and that is cause for concern for me moving forward, because certainly if this was just nonsense, I would have gotten some kind of pushback.
So let me give you a little pushback from my source. So I asked Sparrow about this a couple of weeks back, because this was already spreading in the fandom and a real concern, right? And a fair concern for a lot of people. And Sparrow said, I don't see that. I mean, they're in the office. I said, I don't see that. First, they responded to there was all this stuff that Jon Favreau has quit or been fired, which
right, which we knew.
Yeah, but I mean, I was like, he's he, she, it, them. I use he generically. Sparrow said. Right. I mean, Favreau still has his parking space. I don't know. He still comes into the office. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
So with that in mind, Sparrow did share with me what they have witnessed in their interaction of Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. They've said they don't feel that there's any negativity. In fact, what they're seeing is there seems to be a lot of private communication between those two that Kennedy and the others are not aware of, and they're making that intentional. I want to be very careful how I say that, right? But they seem to be having private talks / meetings that are off campus, off the books, that the Flying Monkeys don't know about. And that seems to be very much an effort to have their own discussion about the future of the company and the franchise without doing the formal, normal processes of meeting in the office. So something is happening, but if indeed Sparrow is not lying to me, if this is true, right, then if you have two people who are adversarial, it's very strange for them to be having private meetings. Unless
they are hashing out some kind of private issue. That's also a possibility.
Which is possible. But even then, let's just say that's true. Even then, that's a sign of an effort of reconciliation of some kind, right?
Yeah, okay? Right.
That's
right.
At least a sign of something. Sure. Sparrow, the pushback when he gives Sparrow is in the office and is like, I'm not getting that vibe. I'm getting the opposite vibe. And that may be just their subjective desire for that to be true. I don't know, right? I wish I was.
Well, I hope that's true, Kamran, because, look, when Jon Favreau kills off his own character at the hand of Praetorian guards from The Last Jedi, that is basically a smoke signal to fans saying that, hope is gone, folks. I mean,
can I give an alternative?
It's like the fake news Star Wars is killing the hope of the old real Star Wars, the new regime killing the old regime.
Well, that's certainly an interpretation that many people took. Another interpretation is that fits. That's that character, Paz Vizsla's, logical end to their journey, because if people watch the Clone Wars and know the history of these different Mandalorian factions, their ancestor, Vizsla's ancestor, had betrayed the other Mandalorians, and this is this is in some ways that moment at the in Fellowship of the Ring, where Sean Bean sacrifices himself to make up for his sins. Right? That's another interpretation. That's an interpretation that personally, that's the one I adhere to. I think it's fulfilling an arc within Clone Wars that's come to an end, that at least ends this character who was seen as part of a betrayer faction, having done the noble thing. That's another way to look at it. That's the way that I think is probable, because I've met Filoni. I've met him once, and that was 12 years ago when they were starting Clone Wars. But the vibe I got from him was very much a guy who knows where his bread is buttered, which says he knows, okay, I'm not going to go against the boss. The boss is George Lucas. I'm going to go against him. Boss Kathleen Kennedy, I'm not going to go against him. But he's also a very political and smart man who knows Favreau is not going anywhere. Even if Favreau were to leave Lucasfilm today, he's a major figure in Hollywood. Even if he were to leave Lucasfilm and go to DC, if those arguments are true, right? This guy is somebody you want as a friend, not as an ally. At some point, Kathleen Kennedy, she's going to retire. At some point, she's going to move on to another world. And this Favreau is still going to be around. You don't want the guy as an adversary. So someone who's that politically as savvy as Filoni was, as the vibe I got from him, doesn't want this guy as an enemy for his career. This guy's worked too hard to get somewhere. To have Jon Favreau as an adversary, that's a long-term no-no for a guy like that. That's just my opinion, why I think that those concerns are incorrect. That's my opinion.
Of course, we know that desperation makes people do crazy things, rash things, like the dangling temptation of my own, Star Wars feature live-action film might well be irresistible. I mean, we're debating. We don't know. I mean,
we don't. I wish I was in this
sure.
room. I wish I was in this room so that I could say this is what I heard, right? I don't. So, but again, I'm just going off my instinct of where my opinion is. If let's say this feature films take years to make, as you know, right? So even if this announced film, realistically, we're not going to see this film for maybe 3, 4, possibly 5 years. The odds are, as a 70-year-old woman, Kathleen Kennedy probably ain't going to be there in 5 years, right? And it's just anyone, a guy like this who's risen up 20 years to try to get his first live-action movie, that's what he's been trying to do. I mean, his own victories where he took him 15 years to get Ahsoka and the characters he loves into live action, right? He got there. He's a step-by-step guy. And so he's got that long-term vision. 5 years from now, by the time his whatever Heir to the Empire, whatever ends up being called, is done, the odds are there will be a new Lucasfilm leadership. That's just age and time. And that would, in my opinion, be not a strategic choice for a guy who's made his whole career of looking years ahead into the future. That's just my opinion. I think it's improbable. Again, it's all about probabilities. For me, it's improbable. But we'll find out as time goes on. But I just don't think that fits the guy that I met.
I don't know. I'm concerned, but that's interesting, and it's more fuel for the debate, more data points for fans to evaluate for themselves. The loyalty or lack thereof of Dave Filoni to Jon Favreau and his commitment, because it was his plan. It was his plan to use the World Between Worlds, the Veil of the Force, to retcon the sequel trilogy out of existence. Now,
we've known that for 3 years. We've known that since before Ahsoka was announced, and we saw the first images of the Veil of the Force in the poster. I mean, your sources told you that. I have a high-level screenwriter friend who knows all these people much higher than I am, and said to me 3 years ago, like, "Oh, John and Dave already have a plan for this. They're going to time travel and change it." She told me 3 years ago.
Absolutely, and that filled me with hope. And then you hear all this other stuff. You see all this thing. The Mandalorian season 3 was pretty rotten.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. And then we're going to get back to Heir to the Empire, okay? But let's talk about that for a second. So let me give you another way to look at this, right? There were some good I think this is the weakest of the 3 seasons I've seen so far, but there were some very good episodes in it, and there were weak episodes in it. I mean, I know what now, one of my Patreon members gave a thesis which I think is accurate. I personally think that's right. I think that all of this happened as everything, including Book of Boba Fett problems, all of that happened because Gina Carano was Cara Dune was meant to be a central character through all of this. She'd been created for a purpose, and then that got all screwed up when she got fired. And so they desperately tried to ham-fist a new Boba Fett, didn't work that well. And then part of that effort was I believe this is right. I think that they took a couple of critical episodes from the third season of, I said it back at the time, that they were taking episodes from third season of Mandalorian and ramming them into Book of Boba Fett to try to cover the whole of Cara Dune, right?
Oh yeah, that's what my spies. Well, they didn't say specifically for Cara Dune. It's just that the quality was so bad that they had to fill in something because it was going off the rails.
So if you had to take full episodes out of season 3, which appears like they did, right? Because there were a couple episodes like, are we in the Mando world? I thought this was Boba Fett, right? What happened? And it's literally, it's like when they, and so you take those and put them there. You got 2 episodes, 3 episodes. You got to fill in the new thing, and so suddenly you're like, well, I don't know, what do we fill it with? Okay, well, why don't we do this episode where we, go back to that scientist with the clone thing and just see what Coruscant is all about. We'll ram that in there. Okay, what about, we still got another hole we got to fill. Let's go to this planet here, and where these communists sitting around doing nothing, being bored. Let's put that in there, right? And so those are the uneven moments. I think I'm of the opinion that a lot of season 3 is quite entertaining. There are noticeable moments, just like in Boba Fett, like, what's happening here? And what's happening here is this Jenga of like, I gotta put this here, right? And hopefully I can cover the bags. Like, I wish I didn't have to do this, but I'm being forced to by circumstances beyond my control. That is what I think happened with regard to quality control. I'm of the opinion that those circumstances, rather than a strategic effort of Filoni to distance himself or align himself with a woman that's never even in the office. She's never there. I don't know how much. She didn't even know, and this Sparrow told me she did not even know that Favreau had quietly changed the opening credits of Mando 3 to take Kylo Ren out.
Right.
And she didn't know that. And how she found out about it, I noticed that. I put that out on Patreon. Some, the spies we have on my Patreon gave it to like Carrie Beck or something. She's like, "Oh crap, is that right?" And they go back and they watch the opening credits. It's not there. They've got the armorer there instead, right? And you're like, well, and let's just say, just a clarification, because I've dealt with opening credits. It's a lot of money to change an opening credit. We're talking about $50,000, $100,000, redesign it, take something down.
That's crazy, dude.
It's a lot of money.
It's just running 2 shots. Anybody could do that with the lighting setup at home, and it wouldn't cost.
Well, but you have unions and things to deal with. You have people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money, and it's got to. But you have to make a choice.
You're right, though. Yeah.
You have to make a choice. You have to make and so to do that is like, why am I going to take this out of my budget to do this when I could just put that budget in and get a cooler special effect in that moment, right? What do I need? You do that if you're trying to send a message. And Farrow did tell me Kathleen was shocked about this. She didn't notice it. She doesn't watch these shows. She didn't notice this. Somebody told her, "Hey, boss, you want to look at this episode?" And I was like, "What? What is this?" And she reached out to Favreau saying, "Did you do this? Why'd you do this?" And what Sparrow told me is Favreau simply responded very politely saying, "Hey, the boss gave me leeway to make the whatever adjustments I felt were necessary," and the boss being Iger. So he said, basically, he's passed it up. He's like, "You want to argue? Don't argue with me about it. Boss said I could do whatever I want on this.
Right.
I hope it's not." And then she shut up, right? But that's a choice. That's a choice when it's like, here's $50,000 I could use for a cool special effect. $50,000 to change this opening credit for no reason. There is a reason. So that's my opinion on that. But maybe we can shift to talk more about Heir to the Empire and what it could be.
Okay, go ahead.
So you and members of my Patreon, and I'm sure people watching this video, are going to express fear that the version of Heir to the Empire that we'll see is going to be Ezra running around, and all these different characters from Clone Wars are going to play the role that Luke, Leia, and Han played in this. I think that's unlikely for a few reasons. One is on a practical level. Filoni's an ambitious guy. Just inside his ambition, he's an ambitious guy. He wants to succeed. He wants to become an A-list live-action filmmaker. He's tried to do that for 20 years. He's getting step by step closer, right? He doesn't want to be the animated guy. He never wanted to be the animated guy. He wanted to be this. He wanted to be Favreau. So, as you rightly state, if Luke, Leia, and Han are not in this movie, which is improbable because Luke's already in Filoni's other material, he's been brought back, so not having him in there doesn't make sense. But if they were minimized and other characters played the roles that they played in the Zahn novel, rightfully, fans, including myself, including yourself, would be unhappy and would likely boycott that movie, or or certainly make sure it doesn't make the money it could make. Filoni, as an ambitious guy, does not want to actually fail. He doesn't want to fail. He wants to make a big Star Wars movie, right? That's been his life ambition. So that gets to the second point, which is this guy, for all of our arguments about his politicking and whatever, I've met him. I really do believe he is at his core a Star Wars fan, certainly more than Pablo Hidalgo and Kathleen Kennedy, who don't care about it, right? But he actually does. He enjoys Star Wars, and there have been great moments. I think we can all agree there have been great Star Wars-y moments in the material he's done throughout his career, right? The Clone Wars, Rebels, and now in a lot of live action. You don't have to like all of it. Don't have to like most of it. But there's been some real heartfelt Star Wars-y moments that feels like this guy was mentored by George Lucas. You don't feel that from Hidalgo, who was allegedly mentored by George Lucas. You feel this guy is what I think a lot of people think Filoni is. This guy is a total betrayer. But that's a whole other topic, right? It's my opinion. It's my opinion, Mr. Hidalgo. I just looking at your actions, whatever. So with that, what would any of us who had the chance to make a Star Wars movie want to do? Any of us real fans? We want to make a Luke, Leia, Han movie, especially one that we never got with these idiot sequels. We never got to see them. We never got to see them together, which is all any fan has wanted since 1983, right? Right. And that I cannot imagine that someone like Filoni actually would pass up the opportunity to make Star Wars history, to fulfill the fandom and put those three back together, right? And yes, deep fake, people say it's expensive. In 5 years, it will be much less expensive than it is today. The technology is quantum leaping with time, and it's worth the expense. If you're going to throw in several $100 million to reshoot Solo and to reshoot Indiana Jones, right? It's worth $50 million more for some deep fake technology to get for main leads. It's worth it because you're going to get a massive profit.
Well, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I mean, as far as, yes, that is the right way to go. The question is, you're saying, well, he wants to, make this successful Star Wars movie. He wants to do this. But here's my perspective on it. Giving a possible counter argument as a writer. I'm like looking at an alternate plot line here. What if Dave Filoni would love to make a great Star Wars movie with the original characters, but for whatever reason, because Kathleen Kennedy doesn't want it, or because it's too expensive for deep fakes, or whatever the case may be, that's impossible. Okay. Is Dave Filoni then going to pass the chance to go ahead and make his feature film? No, I do not think he would, because he is ambitious, like you said. It's his lifelong ambition. Now, he could look at Ruin Johnson, for example, who made the shittiest Star Wars movie in the history of the planet, The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. And what happened to Ruin Johnson? Did it ruin his career? No. He actually went on to do, Knives Out and have his own, franchise and stuff. So it could be that Dave Filoni's like, yeah, well, this is going to basically raise the field. It's going to salt the earth. It's going to kill Star Wars. But I will leapfrog away. I will have my feature film under my credit. Well, it's not ideal, but hey, I'll move on to this project and this project and this project while I'm hot and just leave Star Wars behind. So his ambition is no guarantee. Actually, kind of scares me. The opposite, that he could just say, screw Star Wars, to hell with it. I'm gonna grab the money, I'm gonna grab the credit, I'm gonna grab the experience, and I'm gonna leapfrog to other projects. So there is that possibility.
So let's respond to that. Rian Johnson was already the anointed one. In Hollywood, we have anointed ones. We have anointed ones, as you know, and they're usually people we don't want anointed. J.J. Abrams got anointed. Damon Lindelof got anointed. Alex Kurtzman got anointed. This industry anoints certain people for various political, philosophical, things. That's why they become what I call the members of the club. Ava DuVernay was anointed, right, until she wasn't. Rian Johnson was anointed early on by the club, as I call them, the Hollywood, inside community. And so that's why he felt he had the confidence to screw up Star Wars. He was already being told, you're the next Spielberg. He was being told that, right? Just like Abrams had been told that. And the difference is Abrams is just, a guy who's like in over his head, right? Whereas Johnson is an insidious figure who's like, okay, I can do whatever I want. I've been anointed, so I'm going to screw this up for the white man who I resent and hate and like to mock, right? That's what that was his agenda. And because he was anointed, Hollywood continued to kiss his butt, even though the fans were outraged by this movie, and then gave him Knives Out and Netflix gave him a few $100 million, and away he goes, right? And he's going to keep doing this, right? And he remains anointed by Hollywood. He's still a hero in Hollywood. Filoni is not and never will be an anointed figure. He is, I met the man. He is a guy who is driven by the fact that he is not chosen by the Hollywood industry, and they look down on him as an animated director. They look down on him. When people in Hollywood look down on you, they never stop looking down on you. They never let you. I know from my own experience, they never let you in the club. Every success you have only increases their resistance and their dislike of you, right? And so the idea that if he thought this was I'll just burn Star Wars to the ground and then have Rian Johnson's career. He's had 20 odd years of having his butt kicked and knowing that people don't respect him within the system. He'll never be seen as the next Spielberg by the system. So that would be a delusional thing on his part if he taught himself that and be ignoring his life's lessons. But again, it all comes down to, would he be pressured by forces external? Because the logical thing to do for the fans, for making money, is to bring Luke, Leia, and Han and a version of Heir to the Empire that closely adheres to the novel. You can have Ezra show up, you can have Ahsoka show up and play some roles in that, and but it closely adheres to the structure of the novel. Maybe Sabaoth isn't the Jedi evil, Jedi. Maybe it's another character. Maybe it's a character that we're seeing being developed in Ahsoka. You can switch out who the villain is, but it largely adheres to the structure of Thrawn and this Jedi Master versus the Arc trilogy. That's the logical thing. But
Lucasfilm has been averse to logic. They're absolutely averse to logic. They have anti-logic. They're like George Costanza in Seinfeld, where he resolves, I'm going to do the opposite because everything that I do fails.
5 years? It's going to take 5 years to get this movie made, at least.
But to get it greenlit, it's going to have to get past Kennedy's desk at this point.
But the thing is, a green light, again, this word is now being used. I've heard people use this word green light a lot. There are stages to a green light. Green light is go write a script, right? That's just the development stage, which is where they are right now. Go write a script. And movies, they usually take 5 or 6 years of script development before they reach the stage where we have the final filming version of a script that we want to make. Then you get the actual green light. Here is this budget. You go hire your crew and go start making casting offers. We are several years from that, and which a lot is going to happen, which things you and I cannot foresee. Our adversaries and our critics cannot foresee the next 3-5 years of what's going to happen. But I think it is the one thing we can't foresee. It is improbable that Kathleen Kennedy will still be in her position at her age in 4 years, 5 years, which is about the time before the green light would happen. The only time I've ever seen a green light not happen in that time frame was The Last Jedi, because he's anointed. Literally, he hands in first draft. I don't even think Kennedy read it. And she said, well, he's, Spielberg, he's already, the club has chosen him as the next Spielberg. We're just going to greenlight his first draft. That's insane. And that's the only time I've ever heard of that. In my whole career, and he proudly said it. They greenlit my first draft. That's insane. and that's true. Rare. That's why it's rare.
It happened with Ed Wood. That script was so great and perfect that Tim Burton just wanted to shoot Ed Wood, but it is very unusual and generally ill-advised. Tim Burton
had established a very long career by that time, right? And a lot of power. In fact, some ways I think he's diminished his power, unfortunately, in the last few years. I think some of his recent stuff, like Dark Shadows, didn't work out, right? So, but at that time, he was at the height. So again, these are the events. So we're arguing or debating or being concerned about things that are likely 3 to 5 years away. The world has changed in 3 years. Do you remember the world in 2019, Doomcock?
Yeah,
do you remember that? It was 4 years ago. It's 4 years ago, and it's like another planet. It's like I feel like we're talking about horse and buggy days.
Right. No, it's true. So I think we've done a good job of laying out. I think two most likely scenarios: negative and positive, light side and dark side. My mind is open. and I'm always looking for new data, new shifts
And
in
you
the
want
wind.
the light side to win, even if you are
Of course.
scared and resentful of this process we've endured. You're not one of these people that I call the black pill blobs, the blob
No.
that just sucks all our life. You want good outcome. You've been hurt by this journey where your hopes have been dashed many times, but you've never given up.
Right, and I'm not giving up now, but I am alarmed, and until my spies send me more information that somehow, I mean, you've given me some good things to think about. I think our audience has a new perspective about it, and yet I am deeply troubled, and I have very little faith at this point, but this is interesting. And I think this has been a very interesting discussion. And I want to really thank you for this discussion about Heir to the Empire.